Have you ever felt like you were loving someone from a distance? Like every time you reached out, they stepped back? Like you were chasing someone who never wanted to be caught? If that sounds familiar, this video is for you. And if you stay until the very end, I will show you something that will change how you see your entire relationship history and why you deserve so much more than what you settled for. You stayed longer than you should have. Let me say that again because a lot of people need to hear it. You stayed longer than you should have, not because you were weak, not because you didn't know better, but because your heart believed that love should be earned, that if you just tried harder, waited longer, gave more, they would finally see your worth. But they never did. The anxious avoidant trap is one of the most psychologically destructive dynamics that exists in human connection. And if you have been in one, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You were the anxious one, the one who needed consistency, the one who wanted to know they were loved, not just told, but shown, the one who felt secure when your partner communicated, when they showed up, when they made time. And they were the avoidant one, the one who pulled away when things got close, who needed space when intimacy grew, who disappeared emotionally right when you needed them most. You asked for connection. They called it neediness. You wanted reassurance. They called it insecurity. You tried to talk about the relationship. They called it pressure. So you silenced yourself. You shrank yourself. You told yourself that your needs were too much, that you were too intense, that something was fundamentally broken inside you, but nothing was broken inside you. You were not the problem. You were trapped in a dynamic where your attachment system was designed to seek closeness and their attachment system was designed to flee from it. Your brain was wired to find safety in connection. Their brain was wired to find safety in distance. And every time you pulled closer, they pushed further. Every time you tried to bridge the gap, they widened it. You were fighting against their entire nervous system. No amount of love could fix that. No amount of patience could rewire their fear of intimacy. But here is what kept you trapped. It was not the bad days. The bad days would have made it easier to leave. It was the good days, the moments when they came back, when they were warm, when they said the right things, when you felt like finally, they saw you. That intermittent reinforcement. Psychologists call it one of the most powerful psychological triggers in human behavior because inconsistent reward creates obsession. The brain becomes hooked on the possibility of the next connection. You stayed not because the love was good, but because the silence was unbearable. And the brief moments of warmth made you believe the silence would end. So you tolerated the disappearing acts, the unanswered texts, the coldness after closeness. You blamed yourself for every silence. You wondered what you did wrong. You replayed conversations looking for the mistake you made. You never made a mistake. You were just incompatible with someone who could not meet you where you were. And that is a hard truth to swallow. Because admitting you were with the wrong person means admitting that the years you spent were not going to lead where you hoped, that the future you imagined was never going to exist, that the person you loved could never become the person you needed. But that truth is also the door to your freedom, because once you see the trap clearly, you can step out of it, and that is exactly what happened. The day you finally left, something inside you shifted. You stopped chasing. You stopped begging. You stopped trying to be small enough to fit into their distance. And that moment of choosing yourself, that is what this entire video is about. So stay with me. Because in the next section, I am going to show you exactly what happened inside your mind when you finally walked away, and why it was the bravest thing you have ever done. The silence was not silence, it was violence. Not the kind that leaves marks on skin, the kind that leaves marks on the soul, the kind that makes you doubt everything you are, the kind that makes you wake up at 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling, wondering if you are enough. And that is where you were living, in that quiet place where your mind kept running the same questions over and over. What did I do wrong? Why am I not enough? How do I fix this? When will they finally choose me? You were slowly dying inside, and you did not even realize it. Your nervous system was hijacked every time they went silent. Your body physically responded to their absence. Your heart rate increased. Your mind spiraled. You replayed every word you said, searching for the moment you pushed them away. You sent messages you later regretted. You begged for responses you should have never needed. And every single time, you blamed yourself. But the truth is, your body was responding exactly the way it was designed to respond. Humans are wired for connection. When connection is threatened, the brain sends distress signals. That is not weakness, that is biology. The problem was not that you felt anxious. The problem was that your partner created anxiety and then made you feel crazy for feeling it. They gaslit you into believing your reactions were disproportionate. They called you too sensitive when you broke down after days of silence. They made you feel like the problem when you were simply asking for the bare minimum. And you accepted that, not because you were broken, but because you loved them. And love makes you capable of accepting things you should never accept. Your self-worth was eroding with every cold text, every unexplained absence, every moment they chose distance over closeness. You were pouring everything into the relationship while they held back just enough to keep you hanging on. And slowly, without even noticing, you started to shrink. You stopped sharing how you felt because your feelings were dismissed. You stopped asking for what you needed because your needs were made to feel like burdens. You stopped believing in your own worth because they never confirmed it. You were in a relationship and still completely alone, and that loneliness was destroying you from the inside out. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, the same pattern that makes people addicted to gambling. You never knew when the reward would come. You never knew when the silence would end. So you kept playing. You kept waiting. You kept hoping that the next message would be the one that finally filled the void. But the void was created by them, and they could never fill it because they were the ones who created it. You were not in a relationship. You were in a cycle of emotional starvation and occasional feeding, and your brain became hooked on the hope of the next feeding. That is why leaving felt impossible. Not because the love was good, but because your nervous system was literally addicted to the unpredictability. They taught you that consistency was too much to ask. They taught you that your needs were too big. They taught you to expect silence and to be grateful for the rare moments of warmth, and you believed them. But here is what you were really losing while you were busy trying to hold on to someone who could not hold on to you. You were losing yourself, the person you were before the silence, before the uncertainty, before you learned to expect the worst. That person was fading. The dreams you had, the confidence you carried, the belief that you deserved love without having to earn it, all of that was disappearing. You were becoming smaller to make them feel bigger. You were making yourself less to fit into the space they allowed you. You were dimming your own light because their light kept flickering. And that is the real damage of the anxious avoidant trap. It does not just break your heart, it breaks your identity. You start to believe that you are the problem, that if you were just quieter, more patient, less needy, more independent, they would finally stay. But that is the lie that keeps you trapped forever. Because they could never stay. Not because you were not enough, but because they were incapable of meeting you where you were, and you deserved to be met. You deserved someone who did not run when things got close. You deserved someone who felt safe with your openness instead of threatened by it. You deserved someone who did not make you question your own sanity every time you expressed a need. The person who could not give you that was not a bad person. They were just the wrong person. And staying with the wrong person was slowly killing the best parts of you. But something was about to change. Something inside you was about to break open, and when it did, you would finally see the truth that had been hiding in plain sight the entire time. And then one day, something inside you cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like a seed finally splitting open after being buried underground for too long. The pressure that had been building for months, for years, did not destroy you. It transformed you. You woke up and realized you were tired. Not just physically, emotionally, spiritually. You were exhausted from chasing someone who never ran toward you. You were depleted from giving everything to someone who held back just enough to keep you hungry. You were worn out from pretending you were okay when every silence told you that you were not. And in that exhaustion, something shifted. The search for external validation ended, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally understood that they would never give you what you needed. They could not. Their fear of intimacy was stronger than their love for you. Their need for distance was deeper than their ability to connect. And no amount of your devotion could fix what lived inside them, so you stopped trying. And that decision, that quiet decision to stop fighting for someone who would not fight for you, that was the most powerful moment of your entire life, even if it did not feel powerful at the time. Even if it felt like failure, even if people told you that love requires work, that relationships have hard seasons, that you should try harder. You knew the truth. You were not giving up. You were waking up. The realization hit you like a wave. I was not the problem. I was just incompatible with someone who could not meet me where I was. That sentence changed everything, because once you stopped blaming yourself, you could finally see clearly. And what you saw was this: you had been fighting against an impossible equation. Your brain needed closeness to feel safe. Their brain needed distance to feel safe. Every time you reached for them, their nervous system interpreted it as a threat. Every time they pulled away, your nervous system went into panic mode. It was not love versus fear. It was biology versus biology. Two different survival systems colliding in the same relationship. And the collision was always going to create chaos, not because either of you was broken, but because you were fundamentally incompatible in the way you experienced connection. And that understanding was your freedom. You finally forgave yourself for staying too long, for accepting too little, for shrinking yourself to fit into their distance, for believing that your needs were too much. You let go of all the guilt you had been carrying, and you made a promise to yourself that you would never accept that kind of silence again. You reclaimed your power the moment you stopped waiting for them to choose you. Because here is what most people never understand about the anxious-avoidant dynamic. The anxious one always seems like the weaker one, the one who needs more, the one who is more fragile. But the truth is the opposite. The anxious one is the brave one, because they keep reaching for connection even when it hurts. They keep asking for what they need even when they are dismissed. They keep showing up emotionally even when they are met with distance. The avoidant one runs. The anxious one stays and fights. And when the anxious one finally leaves, they are not abandoning anyone. They are choosing themselves in a way they have never done before. They are saying that their need for connection is not a weakness. It is a valid human need, and they refuse to be with someone who makes them feel like it is a burden. That is self-love in its highest form. Walking away from someone who could not meet you is not a failure. It is a victory. It is proof that you finally valued yourself enough to stop accepting breadcrumbs. It is evidence that you understood your own worth even when no one around you reflected it back. And the funny thing about this moment, the moment you stop chasing them, that is when they start to notice your absence, because avoidants do not value what is in front of them. They value what disappears. And when you stop showing up, when you stop reaching out, when you stop filling the silence with your presence, they finally feel the weight of what they lost. But that is not your concern anymore. You are no longer waiting for them to realize your worth. You already know it. You have always known it. You just forgot for a while because someone made you feel like you were too much. But you were never too much. You were just too much for the wrong person. And that is not a flaw. That is a filter. You learned something during all those painful months. You learned exactly what you need in a relationship. You learned what you will never accept again. You learned that your need for consistency is not insecurity. It is a standard. And anyone who cannot meet that standard does not deserve your energy. So you let go. Not because you stopped loving them, but because you started loving yourself more. And that choice, that moment of choosing yourself over the exhaustion, over the confusion, over the constant uncertainty, that is the moment your life truly began. The person you were before this relationship, the version of you that believed in secure love, in consistent presence, in someone who shows up without being asked, that version of you is coming back, stronger, wiser, clearer about what you deserve, and what comes next will shock you. And what comes next is not a warning. It is a promise, because here is what you need to understand. The anxious one who walks away does not just survive. They transform. They come back stronger, clearer, and completely unapologetic about what they need. And when they find someone who can meet them, the difference is like night and day. You will find someone who matches your energy, not someone who tolerates your need for connection, not someone who manages it, not someone who occasionally gives you what you need while mostly leaving you in the dark, but someone who matches it, someone who reaches back when you reach out, someone who feels your anxiety and responds with presence instead of distance, someone who sees your need to know you are loved and considers it beautiful, not burdensome. This is what the next chapter of your life looks like. And it will feel strange at first, because you have been so used to the push and pull, the silence and the return, the hot and the cold. You have been trained to expect the worst and be grateful for the best. So when someone gives you consistent love, your first instinct might be to question it, to wait for the moment it disappears, to look for the crack in the foundation. But there will be no crack, because someone who is secure does not run when you get close. They lean in, They do not make you guess where you stand. They tell you every single day, not because they have to, but because they want to, because your openness feels like a gift, not a threat, because your need for reassurance feels like trust, not neediness, and your brain will need time to adjust to this new reality. For so long, your nervous system has been in survival mode, waiting for the silence, bracing for the distance, training itself to expect disappointment. But slowly, with someone who shows up every day without fail, your nervous system will learn something it forgot. It will learn that safety is real, that consistency is possible, that love can be steady instead of unpredictable. That is when the real healing begins. You will start to feel like yourself again, not the smaller version of yourself that you became to survive the dynamic, but the full, whole, unedited version. The one who speaks their mind, the one who asks for what they need, the one who does not dim their light to make someone else comfortable. And the person who lost you, they will feel your absence in ways they cannot explain, because anxious people leave deep marks, not because they are dramatic, but because they love with a depth that avoidance cannot comprehend until it is gone. And they will find themselves missing something they never fully allowed themselves to receive. The warmth, the emotional availability, the consistent presence. They will reach out, maybe weeks from now, maybe months. They will send a message that makes no sense. They will act like nothing happened. They will try to pull you back into the same old pattern. And every single time, you will remember this moment, the moment you chose yourself, the moment you stopped waiting for someone who could not show up. And you will keep walking, because you are not the same person anymore. The old version of you would have replied, would have analyzed every word, would have wondered if this meant something changed. But that version is gone. You have been rebuilt, and the new version knows one thing with absolute certainty. You are not going backwards. You have finally learned that love should not feel like a constant test. That connection should not require a law degree to navigate. That your partner should not make you feel like you are fighting for something that should already be given. You know your worth now. You know what you need, and you refuse to settle for anything less ever again. This is not just a breakup. This is an awakening. You were not rejected. You were released. You were set free from a dynamic that was slowly killing the best parts of who you are. And the person who released you did you the greatest favor anyone could ever give. They showed you that you were capable of walking away from anything that does not serve you, even love, even the love you wanted so badly to work. You found a strength you did not know you had. You discovered a power that was inside you the entire time. And now you carry it into every future relationship, every future interaction, every future moment where someone tries to make you feel like your needs are too much. You will never forget what this felt like. The pain, the confusion, the slow erosion of your confidence. You will carry it with you as armor, as proof that you survived something that should have broken you, and that survival made you unbreakable. You are free now. Free to find someone who does not make you chase them. Free to build a connection where consistency is the baseline, not the exception. Free to love without losing yourself in the process. Free to be exactly who you are without shrinking or dimming or pretending you need less than you do. And freedom feels like coming home. So if you are the anxious one who left, hold your head high. You did not fail. You healed. You did not give up. You grew. And everything that comes next will be better than anything you left behind. You finally chose yourself, and that choice will change everything.